Hello and welcome to We Are One Body Audio Theater. This October, the team at We Are One Body Audio Theater will release its first ever fully dramatized series, Electron Jones. Set in a futuristic parallel world with science fiction elements, a Sherlock Holmes-type detective fights crime with his friend October Hughes and her dog Classy. Here in the studio today, we have Joe Potts, the writer and creator of Electron Jones. Hi, Joe. It's great to have you here at our studio in We Are One Body Radio in Latrobe. So why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you first became interested in writing?
Well, first, Greta Lynn, I'm a retired engineer and have 3 grandkids and 2 cats. And live with my wife somewhere, but we're going to be moving, so
No guarantees.
no guarantee what's going to happen there. I first got interested in writing probably in high school. I enjoyed reading a lot of things from Jules Verne and Robert Heinlein and that type of thing, but I also enjoyed greatly the columnists in the paper, humor columnists. So at that point I wanted to be, some kind of writer, probably part-time humor writer, part-time science fiction writer, but I also wanted to be involved in the space program, and so I turned out not doing any of those things. but I wrote a little bit here and there on the side, and then in the year 2000 I actually started pursuing one of those, which was humor writing, and had a little bit of success having humor columns in the local newspapers and magazines.
Excellent. Well, we certainly enjoy the humor that you bring to the stories that you write. And this may be a moot point because it seems like you read a lot of science fiction anyway. But how did you come up with the idea for Electron Jones specifically in the character?
Well, it started with many months ago. I was reading something, I couldn't even tell you what, I don't remember, that it was talking about protons and electrons and neutrons, and for whatever reason it occurred to me that Electron would be a great name for a character. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think anything more about it for a while, and then one day at church I'm listening to a sermon about some miracles of Jesus, and they're talking about the woman who said, if I could only touch his cloak. And when she does, Jesus feels power go out of him, and she's cured. And I'm thinking, what if somebody could do that? What if somebody could just go up to a person and touch them and steal from them whatever special, whatever their great abilities are, and take it from them? And so I began to think of that in terms of a story, and actually came up with a villain before I came up with a hero. And I thought, okay, I need a hero to defeat this villain. How about this Electron guy? Who's he?
Love it.
And I was always, again, going back to my teenage years when I read The Hound of the Baskervilles, a Sherlock Holmes fan, and I thought, I could pattern this guy a little bit after Sherlock Holmes. I don't want to copy him exactly, but I want him to have a little bit of that Sherlock vibe going, and hopefully enough that people will recognize it and appreciate it. And so that's kind of where he came from.
I love it. I definitely picked up on the Sherlock angle. He sort of has that quirkiness. No violin, no pipe, but
right.
It's definitely right there, and I love it. I love it, but that's interesting because it's certainly a hybrid story, so it's kind of, it makes sense that it came from a couple of hybrid ideas.
Right, exactly, it did.
Nice. Great. So you sent us this story a while ago, and we loved it. So we decided to turn it into a series. Do you remember any of the sort of how that happened, how we went from short story to series, and how what you thought?
Yes, I had absolutely nothing to do with that. When I wrote it, to me it was a story, and that was the end of it. And I do recall you guys approached me and said, hey, how about turning this into a series? And I thought, you know what, that's not a bad idea. If Conan Doyle can do it, surely I can do it. No, no, it's not that easy.
No, yeah, right. Was it intimidating at all? Or?
It was some, yes, because now you have to take this character who can maybe be fleshed out enough for a single story, and now not only he but other characters who are going to be continuing, they have to have enough depth to them to now be sustained throughout a series, and every episode you want people to be learning more about them and people wanting to know more about them. And so, yeah, I realized, well, this is getting into a lot more than I put into this first story, but it sounded like a good challenge. I'm still interested to see how it turns out.
Yeah, we're very happy that you stepped up to the challenge, and we're interested to see too. So far, it's been a lot of fun. So how did you first hear about We Are One Body Audio Theater?
Well, I am a member of a writing group, the Delmont Area Writing Group, also known as DOGS. And apparently you guys had reached out to various writing groups saying, we're looking for stories. Does anybody have a story? And it was kind of fortunate for me in that up until that time, I really hadn't been writing fiction. I'd been just concentrating on my humor columns. But shortly before that, an idea for a fiction story had occurred to me. And I thought, well, maybe this would be a good chance to see, I could write this story and send it to them and see what happens. So I wrote the story, which took a while. I was pretty rusty at fiction, and ultimately sent it in to you, and it, much to my surprise, you liked it, and it eventually ended up being on audio theater.
That was the test, right?
That was the test.
Yes.
That's correct.
Not a test, but the story, the test.
The story was the test, and
Yes.
It's sort of aimed at animal lovers, I guess I would say.
I think definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So just to wrap things up, what are you working on now, or what would you like to work on in the future?
Well, in actuality, I'm working on several things at the moment. One of which is another Electron Jones story. I have several sort of backlogged in various stages of incompletion. I kind of thought it would be nice maybe to put out a book someday, The Collected Adventures of Electron Jones.
Yeah.
I'm working on another story which has been I've been tinkering with maybe a year or so, trying to get it into good shape, but it doesn't want to go there. And just a few other ideas I have. I have several ideas for stories that I haven't gotten to yet.
Cool. Well, keep them fresh, and hopefully someday we'll get to read them.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Joe. We really appreciate you coming in and talking to us about the series that we're putting on, Electron Jones. Thank you for writing it, and thank you for sharing it with us.
And thank you for having me.
You're welcome.